Today, we're talking about some of the things that have stood out in the first 6 games of the season for the Chicago Bulls. Next, we're going to be talking about some of the things to watch for in this upcoming game against the Philadelphia 76ers. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Vazelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about some of the things that have stood out in the first 6 games of the season for the Chicago Bulls. And so the first thing that stood out to me has been really the growth of this team. I think that you can see the growth from last season, and I think that this team has certainly picked up from where they were at the end of last season and that hot finish to the season. And so, I think that the first thing that stood out here as far as growth for this team has really been understanding their playing style and understanding their role. And so starting with the offense, I think that this team has done a terrific job as far as understanding the pace and the space of the offense. I think that they've done a great job as far as understanding the reads that they need to make off of the defense and what they're giving them. And so that's led, to this team being really successful so far with their offense. And then defensively, look, this team has certainly been more locked in than they were a year ago. I think that the communication has been there. The effort has been there. And I just think that they understand what they have to do on a night-to-night basis to really be successful on that end. And so I think that we are seeing this team very much just connected and understanding what they have to do in order to win games here in the NBA. And then next, understanding roles. I think that this team has done a great job as far as just being just unselfish out there and understanding, look, if you're coming off the bench, you need to do these certain things in order to impact winning. And then the starters, look, they've all been unselfish. They understand, look, sometimes it may be your night, sometimes it's not. Just be ready to make the play when it's time to make those plays. And so this team is just understanding what they have to do with their roles. And then as far as just more of the growth and the chemistry that we're seeing with this team, I love the fact that they understand a little bit more what to do with the situations. Like, I think that you're seeing this team now, when they're challenged, they're able to respond better than they did a season ago because, each one of their wins against the Pistons, against the Magic, against the Knicks, against the Hawks, like they were tested in each of those games. So even though they won them, each of those teams made runs, or there was a time where the Bulls had to get back in the game and they were able to go ahead and get control of the game that way. And so I just like what we're seeing as far as the situation, there's situational basketball and the composure that we're seeing with this team. And so I think that those things have really stood out here over the first 6 games. And then, just talking about like the chemistry and just really like the trust that we're seeing here with this team. I love what we're seeing there over the first 6 games here. Is just that this team is just going out there and you can tell that the chemistry is there and they're not having to really figure things out. I think that they're a lot more connected as a group. And I think that that's huge because a lot of times you'll see, a lot of teams add, a lot of free agents and stuff like that and those changes. And it takes some time really to kind of gel that chemistry and get things going. But this Bulls team, because they are connected and because they have good chemistry, they have definitely shown it here over the first 6 games of the season. And so next, jumping into another thing that I think has really shown over the first 6 games, it's been the development. And so starting with Josh Giddey, like I think that with him, you are seeing a player that has certainly grown a little bit more as a leader. I think that you saw that in this last game against the New York Knicks. And really, I think for the first part of the season, over the 6 games, it's been there because he is the guy that the Bulls have been looking for, especially since Kobe White has not been there. Yes, everybody has contributed, including Ayo Dosunmu, but, I think that he's done a great job as a lead guard here for the Chicago Bulls. And then when you look at his numbers so far, he's off to a very good start. And so, this is a guy that's averaging 22.2 points right now, and his assists are up. And so 8.7 assists and 9.3 with the rebounds, and his field goal percentage is up just a little bit too, to 49% from 46.5. And so I know that this is a small sample size, but still, Josh Giddey certainly showing the development is there here in year number 2 with the Chicago Bulls. And then also too, Manas Buzelis, I think that he's also showing some individual growth in year number 2. And so I think that he's certainly taken a step from that year 1. He's showing even more confidence. I love the fact that he is getting downhill. And I think that I like the fact that he's become like assertive, but he's not necessarily like just forcing it. And so I think that this is going to open up even more for him when they do get Coby White back, because defenses, are not going to be able to necessarily put as much attention to him. They're going to have to worry about, Giddey and Coby White and others kind of cutting up the defense. And so he's going to have some more opportunities, I think, that once Coby White gets back. And so far with him, I think that he's done a great job as far as just really attacking it. And also too, just coming out on the other side, after just a tough start with his 3-point shooting. Now see, he's back up to actually 41.4%, which is a lot better than what he shot a season ago. And so I know it's early on, but still that's a pretty good percentage here. And then also too, his points are clearly up from a season ago at 15.7. And so obviously he's playing a lot more, and his steals are up at 0.8. And so remember, Manas Buzelis did say that is one of the things that is really going to show for him is his defense. And then with Ayo Dosunmu, with him, I think that you are seeing that this guy is developing even more into a leader. And also, too, I think he's developing more into that 6-man role. And so I cannot wait to see him get back to the Chicago Bulls. I definitely think that this is a player that certainly just he impacts winning, and he's part of just really the development for this team. And so those are some of the things that have stood out here in the first 6 games of the season for me. And so now I wanted to go ahead and shift focus here and just look at some of the things to watch for in this upcoming game against the Philadelphia 76ers. And so starting with Ayo Dosunmu, it looks like that he is listed as questionable for this upcoming game against the 76ers. And so let's see if he does, suit up for the Chicago Bulls, because, I definitely think that, his presence is definitely going to be needed for the team to continue on with this hot streak that we're seeing. I definitely think that if you looked at that last game, the Chicago Bulls would have loved to have Ayo Dosunmu out there. And so not sure if that would have necessarily changed the outcome of what we saw against the Knicks, but I think it certainly for sure helps. And so next, another player that is going to be out for this game against the 76ers is going to be Coby White. And so got a chance to see this. It looks like that he is still going to be out due to the calf. And so Coby White is not going to be back out. And so next, with the Philadelphia 76ers, they have 2 players that are going to be returning back to them. And so it looks like that Jared McCain is expected to play. And so he did tear a ligament in his thumb. And so I believe he's expected to make his season debut. And then also too, Joel Embiid is expected to be back with the Philadelphia 76ers. And so I think that this is going to be interesting to see with how the Chicago Bulls really respond, because the Bulls, again, have been off to this hot start. You're going against a Philadelphia 76ers team that has been very good as well to start off the season. They have a very nice rookie here in VJ Edgecombe, and so he's done some great things for them. And so let's see how the Chicago Bulls respond, especially after this loss to the New York Knicks. And I think that when you're talking about really developing your identity as a team and just really continuing to really build on that foundation, this is what you want. You want to be able to come in against, a good team here after a tough loss and be able to take care of business. And so let's see if the Chicago Bulls can go out and get this win and keep things rolling. And so we'll be talking post game about this game once it's all over. And as we always say here, look, make sure that you definitely check us out for the post game. And as we always say, look, go Bulls. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.